Hello, everyone. Welcome to our group's presentation. This is about a review on Group 4's Speaking Assessment Item Development. Firstly, allow me to introduce our group members. My name is Wan Qianzhi, and we also have Zheng Qiuyan, Chen Lizheng, and Wang Jiahao. First of all, we'll go through the contents. So firstly, we'll do a brief introduction about this review presentation, and then we will go through strengths and weaknesses of their speaking assessment one by one. And finally, we will do a quick summary about this presentation. Okay, so first, let's look at the introduction. Today, as introduced, we will look at the Group 4 speaking assessment design. The purpose of this review is not to either criticize or praise the work, but to evaluate objectively by identifying both its strengths and the areas that could be improved. As we can see from their presentation, Group 4 designed a classroom-based speaking assessment for Form 2 students based on the CEFR and the KSSIM curriculum. Their assessment consists of several components, including an interview and warm-up session, an individual long-term speaking task, and an analytical speaking rubric supported by students, performance samples, and scoring justifications. Overall, the assessment aims to evaluate students' speaking ability in an authentic and structured way while matching the expected proficiency level of A2 to B1 learners. We evaluated their assessment from several important perspectives. We considered if the assessment tasks were logically organized, whether they reflected authentic communication, whether the rubric could be support reliable and consistent scoring, and whether the overall design was practical and suitable for classroom implementation. Okay, so that is all we are briefing now, and next we will look at the strengths and weaknesses one by one.
Hello everyone, my name is Chen Lizheng. Now I'd like to talk about the strengths in this presentation. To begin with, the assessment is presented in a logical sequence, starting with the overview, followed by the speaking tasks, the assessment rubric, student samples, and finally, the overall evaluation. This clear organization makes the presentation easy to follow, and it also reflects how the assessment would be conducted in a real classroom. As the audience, we could understand each stage without feeling confused, which shows that the group planned the presentation carefully. Another strength is that the assessment is highly student-centered. The speaking topics are based on students' daily lives, such as healthy lifestyles, sports, and daily routines. These are familiar topics, so students can express their ideas more confidently. We also like that the assessment includes a 2-minute preparation time before the individual speaking task. This helps reduce students' anxiety while still allowing teachers to assess their speaking ability effectively. Overall, the tasks are authentic, practical, and aligned with the target CFR level. Finally, we think the assessment rubric is one of the strongest parts of this presentation. The rubric is clear and detailed, and it evaluates vocabulary, grammar, and communicative competence separately. This makes the scoring process more transparent and consistent. Another highlight is the inclusion of student samples at different proficiency levels. These examples help both teachers and students understand the expectations more clearly by illustrating what performance looks like across various levels of achievement. They also provide concrete reference points that make assessment criteria easier to interpret, enabling teachers to give more consistent feedback and helping students identify areas for improvement and set realistic learning goals.
Now let's analyze disadvantages. The assessment design is quite clear, but the speaking task is still limited. It only includes an interview and an individual long turn. From this presentation, we can see that students mainly answer questions and speak alone for 1 or 2 minutes. However, real speaking often involves interaction, such as asking questions, responding to others, and continuing a conversation. So, this assessment may not fully show students' ability to communicate with others naturally. The presentation also mentions limited peer interaction as one limitation, but this point is not explained in detail. Second, the time arrangement may be difficult in the real classroom. The presentation states that each pair needs about 6 to 8 minutes. This may sound manageable, but if there are many students in one class, the teacher may need a long time to assess everyone. Although the presentation mentions time consuming as a limitation, it does not give any clear solution, such as using recordings, peer assessment, or smaller group assessment. And third, the rubric is useful, but it is not detailed enough for speaking assessment. The rubric mainly focuses on vocabulary, communicative competence, and grammar. These are important, but uh, pronunciation, fluency, and interaction, so as confidence and task achievement, are also important in speaking. For example, a student may use correct grammar but still speak unclearly or with many pauses. Therefore, the rubric could be improved by adding more specific speaking related criteria. Another problem is the CEFR level. The target level is stated as A2 to B1, but in the student samples, the highest performance is described as B1 or approaching B2. This may confuse the audience because Form 2 students are usually assessed around A2 to B1. If B2 is included, the presentation should explain why it is used and how it connects to the target standard. And besides that, the examples are not broad enough. The theme is health and environment, but the task card only focuses on a healthy lifestyle and physical activity. There is no task related to the environment, such as recycling, pollution, or saving water. Because of this, the assessment does not fully cover the whole theme. It would be better if to include at least one environment-related speaking task. Finally, the limitation part is too brief. It only lists 3 points: time-consuming, scoring subjectivity, and limited peer interaction. These are good points, but they need more explanation. The presentation would be stronger if it explained why these problems happen and how teachers can reduce them. For example, by using clearer descriptions, sample answers, or teacher moderation. Overall, this presentation has a clear structure and some useful examples. However, from the presentation, we can still find several problems. The task lacks real interaction, and the time arrangement may not be practical. The rubric is not detailed enough, and the CFR level is not fully consistent. And the limitation part needs more explanation. So these improvements can make the assessment more practical, fair, and suitable for Form 2 students.
For this slide, we will talk about the summary. To conclude, we think this speaking assessment is well designed because it follows the CFR and the KSSM requirements. The assessment task allows students to use English in meaningful situations, while the rubric provides clear guidelines for teachers to assess students fairly. However, there is still room for improvement. In the future, students could be given more opportunities to practice speaking before the assessment. More pair or group activity could also be included to encourage communication and teamwork. In addition, teachers can provide clear feedback after each task so that students understand their strengths and know what they need to improve. Overall, this is a practical and useful speaking assessment. We hope it can help students become more confident, improve their communication skills, and enjoy learning English. So that's all for our group presentation. Thank you.